Hi guys, welcome. I'm Carly from Carly's Creative Clay. I hope you've all had a good week. This week we're going to be continuing on with a project that I have started on previous videos. So if you want to see how we've done the previous stages, go into my YouTube and there will be videos of them. So, as a quick start, I always show something from my shop. So the item of the week is, that was just to keep it in place, little unicorn statue. Two unicorns sat on a rainbow, their tails twisted together and their arms around each other. So very cute, would make a really good Christmas present, and it's £15 plus postage if this is something you're interested in buying. Alright, I will stick that to one side and we can get on with what I was making. So this is the woman that we've been making so far in previous weeks. Now, I said last week, well, not last week, I weren't on last week, our internet had completely crashed, so sorry to anyone who wanted to watch me. There was an internet outage in my whole area and it didn't come back on till late. I said the week before that don't bake your finished thing the same day as you make it, because coming back to it with a fresh pair of eyes, you often find things that need to be changed. If you baked it, you still can change it, but it's easier to change raw clay. And that was the case with this. I thought that we had her good, but I've decided I needed to put a bit more clay on her middle to give her a bit more of a fuller waist. So what I did was I did little rectangles, feathered in the join there, and it wrapped around to the back and came over so that her spine was a little bit more pronounced. I also the next day noticed that one bum cheek was smaller than the other and they were very round, so that made her look like she was on tiptoes, and she isn't, she's got flat feet. I didn't even spot that. Something I have, which I really advise to any clayers out there, have a few trusted, really good friends that you've got on WhatsApp or Messenger of some description that you can send a picture to them of work in progress so they can spot what you missed, so you're able to change it around. It was the wonderful Charlie Starr who spotted that I needed to just literally do that, and now it looks like it's meant to. So those were the alterations that was made, and she has been baked, so we now need to get on to those arms. Because it's been a week since I've used the clay, before the live stream I added liquid polymer clay. That's liquid Fimo, because I'm using Fimo. It is what I tend to use to soften clay with. And all I do is I fold it in half, get a little gap, and then I'll squirt into that gap and then bring it up and start to knead it in. You have to bring it out and scrunch it back up several times to make sure that it's mixed fully, but it will mean the clay won't be so hard to work and sculpt with. So that was done off screen. Pretty much most clay, well, I can speak for Fimo, I'm not a user of any of the other ones generally. No matter how hard it is, you can bring it back to soft by a mixture of either liquid Fimo or baby oil. If you use baby oil, use very, very small amounts, like a tiny drop, because too much in it makes the clay unstable.
Artie Hearty Life says hello.
Hi Artie Hearty Life, it's lovely to see you. We're just getting on with the arms on Our Lady from last week. So I've repositioned them. Now you will notice that the wire is too long for what we're going to need. That is on purpose. And again, here is my artist's mannequin. So you can see shoulder there, elbow there, hands will finish there, and you don't want the wire right up at the tip of the fingers. So really we only need it about that long. So take that off. The reason why I've got that extra is when I mount it on the piece, if she's going to be leaning on something or holding something, you can push the end of the wire into the other bit and it then gives it even more structural stability. If it turns out that you don't need it, then you can always trim it off at that point. That's one of the reasons why I do the hands as one of the last things, and I will do them literally once I finish making the whole of the rest of the other model that they're going to go in, so that I know. I mean, legs, you can, if you it can be better if you pre-plan the position your person's in, so then you can put different stances on them. But I'm a bit early in the game for that. I'm just aiming for standing up and looking normal, really. So I think planning out the final piece will come with time. So yeah, right, we're going to get onto these arms. So first thing we need to do is portion out some clay. Now again, hold your clay up, work it all out against the arm, and it doesn't matter too much if it turns out you use more or less for the finished arm, because you can always either add clay on or pinch off the end and take some off. But I like to start out with two bits that I think are roughly going to be the same size, right size for the end product, and make sure that the two balls are the same amount of clay. I mean, if you really want to get exact about it, you can get some little weighing scales and weigh each bit and see if they weigh the same, they're going to be the same mass, thus the same size. But I rarely do that. I generally eyeball it. There are times where I do weigh it. The other thing you can use, let's see, mine is buried. This is what happens when you think about something halfway through the string. There is a little guide that Polymer does to the sizes of, here it is, this Polymer accessories. You can find them on eBay, I think Amazon certainly, and a load of other shops, but you can make a ball that fits in one of these circles, and then you can make sure that the other one fits through in the same. So this was really cheap. You got your ruler, you got your ball measurements of different widths. You can measure out lines horizontally, things like that. So for the money, it was worth it. And also, because it's produced by Polymer, I generally think it's not a type of plastic that will react with Polymer, which is good. So I haven't patch tested this, but I think it's fine. So what we're going to do, get that ball, stick it onto the wire roughly going through the middle. If you're finding it hard just to push it straight on, if you twist a bit, you'll find it'll go through easier. And I'm going to get that ball, move it round that elbow, and just before it's going to touch anything and stick, we're going to start to thin it out so that we don't attach it to the side of her boob, we're going to attach to the shoulder. So maybe need to get that wire just out a little bit. And the good thing about baking your body before you start messing with the arms is, first of all, you can handle it and you're not smudging all your work, but you can also have raw clay touch against it and it won't stick so readily. So what I'm doing, can you see that end? I'm just pushing it up and starting to join it into the shoulder there. So it's looking chunky, but what we're doing mainly is just making sure there's enough clay there up in the shoulder for what you want, because the rest of this you can always just bring it down again. So let's get a tool and feather in some of this. So you can either get your ball tool and just come along and start to join it in. You can use the sides of tools to roll the clay up.
That's interesting, you blend it before you sculpt.
Yeah, because the thing is, if you join this line in first, then all the detail that you sculpt in afterwards don't get smudged out by you trying to join it. And also it anchors the clay to the baked bit far more.
Daphbra says, hey Carly.
Hi Daphbra, lovely to see you. How are you? I'm just blending it in. Can you see? I'm just rolling this clay up. So anything with a little flat edge would do it. I mean, I see people use their X-Acto blades and do that with it, but I always find I don't like that blade. So if you're going to do that, take the blade out and then use the metal as a little rolling pin. But personally, I would just find something that would do the job. So even a little noodle would do it.
Says, hey honey, I'm so sorry I haven't been around much. I've had a lot going on recently.
That's entirely fine. Like I say to everyone, only me and James have to be here every week. Everyone else is allowed to have a life. I'm suspecting Christmas Day is on a Wednesday as well, so I don't think I'm not going to be that dedicated, I doubt it. Right, now, the trick here on the back of the shoulder is to get rid of that line. Can you see that horrid join line? Without smudging out all the detail under that scapula. And the clay kind of wants to smudge so that you've got this bulge under the armpit. So you're going to need to turn it upside down and just get in there with something little and convince it that it's not coming down that far.
You're wandering off the bottom.
Ooh, I'm wandering off at the bottom. So can you see I'm just smudging it in and blending that. And where you can, I find the best blending tool is your thumb or your finger. You see how I'm just rubbing it. A lot of people on the clay forums have very strong viewpoints that you can't blend raw clay in with baked clay without using a layer of liquid clay. Well, I'm just literally showing you me doing it. They say you need a very, very thin layer. And every time I've tried it, and I really, really have tried it many times, the thinnest possible layer, and it still slides. It doesn't grip and do this ability to blend in. You just slide it straight off. So unfortunately, I've given up trying with that method. I really have. So I'm not saying it don't work. I'm saying it don't work for me. But some of my absolute clay idols swear by it. That's why I gave it so much of a go. I would say if you haven't got a decent tool set, sculpting humans are going to be really, really tough, because you do just need several different shapes just to get in there. Now, can you see this? There's the wire where I've been wiggling the clay around, the hole's gotten quite big. So if I started messing with that, I'd trap a big air bubble in. So make sure if you're done wiggling around that you're pushing from the join line in together, but pushing the air out of the hole. Okay, so like that. Can you see I'm just pinching it round and squeezing from the shoulder down, and then bringing it back. Because if you trap that big air bubble, then you think you've got a thick arm and you haven't. It's about that thick underneath, or worse. So yeah, don't worry, it looks chunky. She is not going to have that muscular, huge arm.
Unless you want her to.
Unless you want her to. Because this is the good thing about making your own models, is they will look exactly how you make them. So when you're a kid and you're like, I really like this doll, but I wish she looked like blah blah blah, this will help with that. I'm a long way off from being perfect at it. There are much better human sculptors out there, but I wanted to share my journey from the early stages with you. So this is literally the fifth human I've sculpted.
It depends if you count mermaids.
Oh yeah, I'm counting mermaids. If I'm not counting mermaids, then there's been a significantly less. 2 mermaids, 1 fawn, this lovely lady who is gonna be part of, I'm doing basically a similar thing with this one, so I'm keeping her on site just to help me get an idea of what I'm doing with her. Right, can you see I'm just making sure that where her arm is away from her body, that the armpit doesn't have that big join line there. Can you, there you go. Can you see she's got a big serious dip in under her arm?
Hold a bit, please.
Sorry, like that. There we go.
So
What would I do without a Jamie here? He makes sure I stay on camera. I'm just bringing the clay down, and you need something with quite a fine tip.
I really need another screen in front of you so you can see what the camera's doing without.
It's because I'm focusing on the clay. It's very hard to.
If the screen was literally just the other side of the model, I think you would find it easier.
Yeah.
But I only have 2 screens.
If you want to save yourself hassle, put her arm down beside her, and then you won't have to do this level of faffing with joining it all in. So like that, let's just bring that up a little bit more chunky, because I want to have a bigger top arm than that. There we go. Right, now what you've got for your top arm, let's bring it down. You've got a kind of rounded shape. So I'd like to show you on dolls, but as you can see, thanks to the new way they're designing Cindy dolls, all of them don't actually have a proper musculature. They all, I mean, look at her. Seriously though, come on guys. I know they're cheap, but dang. So yeah, if you want to get that bulge, you get the clay and you just push it up slightly from the under point of where you want that rounding, that nice sort of leaf shape almost. So we're going to then come down into the elbow, so it gets quite thin around here. So remember, try not to wiggle the clay so you're making a big sort of gap, but you are going to evenly push round like this. There we go. Then we'll bring the clay down like that. Now there is quite a pronounced bend to your elbow. There's definitely that triangle shape, and you have got a bit sticking out there, so it's easy to try and make the bend like that. So with my arm here, bend it like that. It's easier for the clay to do that, but you need to come in and pinch out so you've got a proper elbow like this. You see?
Does it depend on the angle?
And if your elbow's up like that, then you bring the clay round, but bring the forearm round. So like that. If I wanted to go that way, I can do that, because she's probably going to be leaning on something, so I want the elbow to come round a bit. And again, if I was doing a very, very stick thin model, I would be doing less shoulder, but I'm not. I want to come in a bit more there, so I'm just going to bring out that joint like that, and then gently, not a lot of pressure, I'm just rolling off those jump lines there where I pushed in. Can you see it sort of goes down and then juts up and then like that? So I'm just making it so they're like little diagonal. There we go, that looks more like it. See what I mean? Right tool for the job. It's really useful.
You might want to twist it so we can see the elbow.
Sorry, there we go. That's the elbow. I'm just forming it up a bit more. There we are. What do you reckon?
Looking good to me.
So, like that. Now, your wrist, it's roughly, it's just slightly thicker than the top of the arm of your, that's your top arm, that's your bottom bit of your arm, right? It's just thinner than that. So there is the temptation to pinch the clay very, very thin, but do watch it that you don't make too thinner wrists. Now, I've found that when you're going to come in and do your hands later, you will be adding some clay onto the wrist to do that join. So it's better at this stage to make your wrists slightly too thin, knowing that you're going to add more clay later, than it is to make them the proper width and then try and join the hands on. So I'm just going to give her a little bit more of a bump down there. There we go. And it, again, it's a lot about fiddling and looking at your own body and looking online and seeing what whether what you've done looks right. So let's double check my arm lengths. So shoulder like that, elbow, then yeah, wrist needs to be about there. So I'm going to just take off that bit of extra clay, and that's what you do. You hold on to the bit you want and then twist. and it comes off. So we want those wrists down here. That's better, because if you don't get the proportions right, people notice. And it's a little bit less of an issue on having too longer legs or too longer arms, because not everyone has the same proportions. You'll find that some people, I've got very short top legs. My cats hate it because when I sit down, there's not enough room for them to sit on my lap. My husband can do the Sharon Stone proper put your leg over thing like that. I can't. It's too short. So you can get away with doing slightly off proportions on limb to abdomen. But things like distance in your face, people notice when you mess that one up. Right. So we're going down to a thinner wrist than I actually want, so there's room for clay. What do you reckon? That's my first arm, I think, done. Yeah? Looking good? So, now, like I've said on other parts of this model, the first arm or leg or any of the things that you need to do a symmetrical body part to, the first one's far easier than the second one. Because the first one, you're just fiddling until it looks right. The second one, you've got to get it to look like that first. So I'm just bringing that round the bend. And yeah, it breaks up the ball, and that's absolutely fine. Just do that. So let's get to joining that to the shoulder and bringing it out again. Let's have a quick sip of drink. Now, last week I showed you that I was making a little girl for a different project that I'm working on, because this would literally be my first ever little girl, and I've actually finished her. Right, something to show you here. Can you see the clay wants to join like that, but if you look, that arm needs to level in with the scapula. You don't want to have a jump down. So let me see, have they got a scapula right on one of these? Not really. One of these days I will get a proper model, but they cost a fortune, anatomically correct dolls with all the muscles in place. Weirdly enough, you're more likely to get a correct or slightly more correct male than you are to get a female doll, because they're more likely to put all the muscle groups in for the G.I. Joes and that sort of thing. But can you see I brought that arm up so that it's leveling with that scapula? So once I've got the clay where I want, like I did before, get a tool and just roll it into those joints so that it's easier to smooth down. There's not a big jump. Like that. Right, yes, I spent all week working on this doll of the child, and it was not easy because they've got quite a rounded face and their features are less developed, but I got there. Once I've done this arm, I will give you a look at her because I'm pretty proud of her. So hopefully I'll have her done in time for the competition, which is this month's British Polymer Clay Guild competition is about textures, and while I have been working on textures on this piece, I wanted to carry on my journey of learning how to sculpt humans. So again, just feathering it all in, and you will find that your fingers really help with that. But the other tool you can use if you've not got anything at a push, old cocktail stick, yeah? See? That'll get in those spaces as well. You just got to make sure you don't stab it with the point. Sometimes I will literally get a pair of scissors and cut that tip off, because I'm more likely to catch a tip than I am a flat edge. Can you see this is working absolutely fine to do the job? And I'm putting very, very light pressure on. What I discovered over the years, when people say you have got to get used to handling the clay, and that's what they mean when they say I learnt by experience. What they're talking about is you've got to learn to hold your clay a lot lighter and be a lot more aware of what both hands are doing than what you do in most other times you're trying to achieve a task. So back when I got started, I'd be so focused on the bit that I'm joining or sculpting that I didn't notice my other hand was holding the piece far too tight, and I was smudging all the design straight out of it. So practice, practice, light hands. Right, so that's mostly joint in, and it doesn't have to be too exact, because we are going to get some clay in for the head at some wends, and that will add more fresh clay that will help with joint lines. So under the armpit is important, because you're not going to add any more clay around there. So if you can see a jump down, just get your finger and smooth it all in. There we go. Can you see? Now that join line is next to not visible. Right. Something that I also found that freaked me out, especially when I was dealing with skin tones for humans. The raw clay colour can often be kind of different from the baked clay colour. And I found that particularly, when particularly when I was dealing with a Caucasian skin colour, because of the pink-orange mix, I found that the raw clay looked really different from the baked. And so when I came back the next day to add another bit to the thing I baked the night before, I thought I picked up the wrong bit of clay and freaked out, because I thought, okay, I'm going to have to scrape all this raw clay off and start again and all that. And it turned out that it wasn't. It was the correct clay, just the wrong dang colour. Right, let's get this elbow in. And this is what I mean. You've got to make sure that that part of the arm and that part of the arm, they're the same length. Something that can help you with this. Right, I've got to remember what they call them. Let's see. Measuring thing. That. Calipers, that's it. Mini calipers. You can get them right the way up to these massive, great big, looks like garden shears. It's got a little screw there. I use some pliers because my fingers are chunky. you loosen them up like that, and that means they move very, very easily. You take a measurement that you want, so elbow to scapula, like that.
Don't you want the other arm, the one you've already done?
Hold it firm. So elbow to scapula. So this one is slightly longer than that one. And my tip is I keep them almost completely done up so that they're quite stiff. So you don't accidentally jog them. They can take a jog and not move so much. So the arm that I've done, elbow, scapula, yeah. So that one needs to just come out slightly more like that. So they're useful, and again they were £3. We'll start bringing that arm down, and again you need to make sure you can do it with your fingers, but you're more likely to move them than you are to move something this stiff. So inside join line, that looks about right. So I can go down to a wrist. Now that happens a lot when you work with wire. Can you see the clay has come off line, so it's no longer wrapped all the way around? What I suggest, you put your finger on the side that you need to push back up, push it back in place, then you bring the clay around and smooth it back in, and it's back in the center again. Just make sure you don't trap air when you do that, because that is entirely possible, and I've done it many times. If you give your air bubbles a means of escape, they will always take it. So long as you don't trap off the exit, you're going to be fine. So again, let's get a bit of a inner elbow joint and then smooth out so they actually look natural, like that. Now, what do you reckon? Do they look right to you guys? You've got to check. That's the thing to check. Can you see the shape of that elbow looks correct? It's quite thin and pointy. Look at this side. She's had tennis injury. So let's thin it down. These are the sorts of things that coming back the next day and having a fresh set of eyes to look on them, you'll notice this stuff and go, oh, that's not right. The other thing coming the next day does, the lighting in the room is different. Especially if you're like me and your projects normally finish in the wee hours of the middle of the night, because you're just going to do this last bit honest and then you'll go to bed. That. So again, let's get that point in a bit more. There we go. That looks more right. Yeah. Coming back in the middle of the daytime means that you will actually have different lighting and it will show more up. Right, what I'm doing, apart from it looks like I'm petting her, I'm getting rid of all the fingerprints. So just doing a very gentle rub gets rid of them all. There are people who do a rubbing alcohol wash over to get rid of fingerprints and dust and all that, but I do that when there's a lot of dust or there's colours in the wrong place. But just to get rid of a few fingerprints, lightly stroking over the area does fine. See? There we go. So I reckon those arms are ready. So what I'll do next week, we will work on the head, but I'll get her baked. No doubt I will change her around and show you next week the difference. But so far, this is where we're at.
Look good to me.
Yeah? Before I go, I promised to show you where I got to with my little girl. So let's pick her up. Alright, can you zoom in? Or focus? There we are. Now she's kneeling down because she's going to be feeding swans. She's even got treads on her shoes. Since we're dealing with texture as one of the brief themes.
Fairy hedgehog says coming on a tree.
Yeah, she really is. So and can you see? No hands. Hands always come last.
Fairy hedgehog says she's cute.
And she is going to come in and kneel on the edge like that. So that hand's going to lean on that plant. Whoop. And this hand's going to hold a bag of bird food. This one's got to go on, and then I've got to do some little signets. But this is what's keeping me away from doing more on this, because I want to keep this lady, so I'm only working on her on screen, other than any minor changes that I make.
Fairy hedgehog says that is the most adorable pond ever.
Thank you. It's only taken me a month so far. Yeah, I don't think I'll be charging what it's worth, but I never do. People won't pay. But anyway, I hope you all have a great week. And next week I will be back on and we will be making the head and the face. That's the challenging bit. That's the bit that's always interesting.
I know how to use life says little by little.
Yeah, I know, right? We're getting there.
Baby steps. Life says fab.
Okay, bye everyone. Have a great week.